This episode of Motorsport Recently, we'll be discussing the NASCAR playoffs, De Benedetto's future, some Formula E news, and all the other goings-on in this past week in racing. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome along to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie and joining me on the mic are my usual partners in crime, the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. However, you will be able to hear a little bit of background noise, and that's because we have a guest. He was on the third ever episode of Motorsport Recently, and now 21 podcast episodes later, he's joining us once again, and he's also currently in a league race. So welcome back to Joshua Franks, who's he's joining us on the podcast once again.
Yeah, I'm here right now, and second too. So yeah, that's it's
very
going
nice.
good.
Good start.
Yes, and Caitlin, everyone is unmuted. Just well, I'm just asking if everybody's
Yeah,
unmuted.
indeed. I can see the data coming through on both your and my end, so everything should be fine. Sorry, it's not gone the right way in the past.
Right.
And I am testing as well. Hello? Hello.
It's working for
Yes,
all of
quickly.
you. The podcast is up and running.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So we do have a few interesting things to go to today. We'll go through today. We have a lot of NASCAR news, hence why we have our NASCAR man along with us. There's some Formula E news. So Caitlin, you might want to get on this document because there's a couple of stories here for you
Sure,
as well. We have our usual segments as well as the debut of a brand new segment as well. So we've got actually two brand new segments as well. So this is going to be a very, very exciting episode indeed. So if we're all ready to go, should we get into our first segment of the day, which is our Red Line Headlines?
I don't have the
Let's
jingle
go for
ready
it.
yet.
Okay.
I was
Oh,
literally,
no.
I was just scrabbling for the intro right as you said that. But anyway, okay. Redline headlines. Here we go. In a second,
Okay.
when it comes. Here we go. Go, go, go. Red light. You know you wanna.
You know you wanna.
You know you wanna. Headline. It's Redline headline. It's Redline headline. It's Redline headlines. There we go. Redline headlines. Take it away, Jack.
It's Chris who does this segment.
Take it away, Chris.
Excellent.
This is going to become a running gag. Fantastic.
I love it. Okay, let's start with Formula One. As Charles Leclerc defended valiantly from an attacking Lewis Hamilton at the Italian Grand Prix. A small mistake by the Brit meant that Valtteri Bottas got a chance to gun for the lead. However, Valtteri would make a small mistake, costing him the victory, and Charles Leclerc would win for the second race in succession. Leclerc's victory for Ferrari ends a 9-year losing streak at Monza, and let's say the Italian celebrations were slightly less than reserved. The order went Leclerc, then Leclerc, Bottas, and Hamilton. In Formula 2, Nobuharu Matsushita ran away with the victory in the feature race at Monza, finishing nearly 6 seconds ahead of second-place man Luca Ghiotto. Nick de Vries rounded out the top three after effectively driving from the back of the field. And we'll have more on Nick de Vries later. Jack Aitken would take victory in the sprint race after battling with Jordan King and nearly being rear-ended by Callan Eilot. King ultimately finished second, with De Vries once again finishing in third place. Turning to NASCAR, Kevin Harvick won a slightly above average race at the Brickyard 400, taking his second win of the season. Joey Logano brought his Shell Penske Ford home in second, while Bubba Wallace brought home an impressive third-place finish for Richard Petty Motorsports. After a mid-race wreck, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson missed the NASCAR playoffs, ending a streak of 15 consecutive playoff runs. And in the Xfinity Series, Kyle Busch took advantage of a wreck between Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell in the closing stages of the race at Indianapolis. Busch would then hold off a chasing Justin Allgaier to take his 96th victory in the Xfinity Series. And that is your red line headlines for Saturday, September the 14th.
Number 15th,
Or 15th.
if you're in Australia. Yeah, exactly.
Or 15th if you're in Australia. And that's your red line headlines. Take it away!
All right, so should we start by talking about the Formula One race from Monza then? I mean, that was absolutely superb. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, it was a little bit messy up front. I definitely like to see wins being claimed a bit cleaner than that. But can I just point out that what I've been wanting to happen for the entire season has finally happened. They've actually used the black and white flag. Everyone give a round of applause to the FIA.
Yay!
I love that. Because I'm fed up of seeing people penalised for stupid little things, and I'm also fed up of the attitude of, oh, it has to be a penalty, or you have to let it off. No, you don't. You can give the driver a warning, and that's never been used recently. It really should be. Black and white flags were always in the regulations. But if you had a black and white flag on hand, things like, for example, the Canada controversy would never have happened, where Sebastian Vettel made a slight mistake, hindered Hamilton slightly. It was a little bit messy, but he didn't gain too much advantage from it. That should have been a warning, okay? That should have been a yellow card, a black and white flag, and instead it ended up costing him the win, and there was a huge backlash over it, and very rightly so. In this case, I am just so glad that they didn't repeat the same thing. And a lot of people have been saying that they only did it because, it's Ferrari and they're on Monza home turf and they were expecting a riot and, Ferrari international assistance and Ricky and all of that. But that really wasn't the case. And I really hope... Indeed. And I really hope that the yellow card, the black and white flag, is here to stay because everyone needs this.
Yeah, it most certainly does. And I 100% agree with you, but that might be due to my slight bias with wanting Charles Leclerc to actually win a race for Ferrari in Italy. But I digress. That was still a fantastic race, though, and I very much enjoyed seeing Charles Leclerc defend from Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, and that was an absolutely superb drive from him. However, I do want to talk about... Ferrari's slightly lackluster drive from Charles Leclerc's teammate, which was, less than slightly lackluster. It was actually rather terrible. Sebastian Vettel.
Painful to watch.
Sebastian Vettel, is he on the way out?
So I say yes, unless he makes a very clever and very drastic turn with his career. So Sebastian Vettel, I've always said this, doesn't fit with Ferrari. He's a very emotional driver, and when things start to go wrong for him, he just can't concentrate. He just gets it all wrong. And I can tell that he truly loves Ferrari, and he truly wants to perform for them. But the fact is, he's just succumbing to the pressure, and that's why he's spinning so much, because he never used to spin back in his Red Bull days. If you think about it, yeah, you can think of one or two that happened in practices, but when did he throw away a win by spinning? It just never happened. However, 2017, 2018, 2019, suddenly it's you spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record baby, baby, right round, and he can't hold it.
Let's pull that for future podcasts.
So,
audio clip for that one.
Indeed.
That's the pull quote for this podcast.
We need one.
There
We
we go.
absolutely do need one.
So with Sebastian Vettel, I say that what he really needs to do now is, okay, maybe he should retire if his heart's not in it, but I feel like his heart really is in it. I feel like he wants to perform. I feel like he's putting too much pressure on himself to perform. And I think that if he really wants to perform again, he's going to want to go to a team with less pressure, such as, for example, Red Bull.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think he's really going to want to crawl back to Red Bull, is he? And I don't even think Red Bull will have him back either.
Oh, Red Bull need to have him back because they are so tight on drivers. I'd say that if Vettel came knocking on Red Bull's door, they would absolutely hire him. You know, it would be Verstappen and Vettel at Red Bull next year, which admittedly would be a pretty tough combo, and it would be Albon and probably Gasly at Toro Rosso next year, which it'd be good for Red Bull. I think Vettel versus Verstappen would be tough. Although I do think the actual team and the team environment and the team personnel would be better for Seb.
Yeah,
Could you
Red Bull.
say-
Red Bull
Can I-
to me. Sorry. Red Bull to me looks actually more like a more chill team than say Ferrari does, just because of the fact that everybody is more like if your social media is anything to go by, they genuinely have fun. Like the drivers genuinely have fun off track, and it translates into their performance on the track. And honestly, and like I'd like to see him at Red Bull, but at the same time, I think sadly the pressure's getting to him at Ferrari.
Can I just say, there's another audio clip we need. We knocking on Red Bull's door.
All right, let's
giving
pull
you-
that too.
I've given you quite a few today, haven't I? Goodness me.
Yes,
We're only-
fantastic
we're only a few
ideas.
minutes in.
May I just point out also in the incident with Vettel spinning at Ascari, Lance Stroll, the
Yeah.
radio transmission
Yeah.
Bit of a hypocrite.
of how
wasn't
he basically drives like an idiot, yet a few tenths of a second later he does the exact same thing. He spins, re-enters the track with a very unsafe release, and nearly spears into I almost said Nigel Albon, but into Alex Albon. Like, the guy this weekend has been kind of a regression for Lance Stroll. Like, I hate to say this because
Well,
he's actually kind of impressed me this season.
yeah.
And I know that's kind of difficult for me, that's a foreign concept for me to say that, but this weekend was just a regression, like, even down to the joke that was Q3. Like, that was, like, him holding up everybody in the back, like, in the group, along with Hulkenberg, that was not, I'm sorry, but that was terrible driving. And, like, this hypocritical thing that he does, he's not, like, he thinks he's above everything, but sorry, that's not how it works.
Okay, I'm going to come to Lance's defense quickly. So
Go ahead.
Firstly, I think that he actually did perform really well at Italy, in a car that wasn't really expected to do that well. He got it into Q3. It was the first time that he'd ever been in Q3, and without the Vettel incident, he would have scored points. However, of course, the Vettel incident, well, you know, he was completely innocent in that. He did then come back on right in front of Pierre Gasly, and he was hypocritical over the radio, and it was a silly mistake. Okay, yeah, you know, that's pretty inexcusable. However, as for the hypocrisy, after the race, he did say that his mistake and Vettel's mistake were equal. I saw this in a headline. He admitted that, yeah, you know, Vettel's penalty shouldn't have been larger than mine because we did the same thing, basically. And that's noble of Lance. So, yeah, he made a silly mistake, but I'm going to defend him on this one. I think that...
I actually kind of respect him for that.
Of course, yeah.
I respect him, and like I said, this season, he's actually genuinely begun to impress me this year, and
Me too. He just needs to work on his qualifying.
and I never thought I'd say that.
He just needs to work on his qualifying, because in the race, he's as quick as Perez or quicker. It's just that in qualifying, he really struggles, and he can't really get out of Q1 that often. And I think once he gets the hang of that, once he can, you know, put a lap together and really psych himself up for that one short blast, I reckon that he's going to be a really quite competitive midfielder. But whatever the case, he did make a...
He's actually one of the best of the midfield drivers, I think.
He is. He did, however, make a silly mistake, as did Vettel. I think both of them needed to get their head back in the game that weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do at Singapore.
And to see what Lance has actually, how Lance has kind of grown in the 2 years he's been...
He is most improved, in my opinion. He's the most improved driver on the grid in the last 3 years.
Yeah, in his first race in Formula 1, you would see an onboard lap with him, and he would jerk his hands from side to side.
Yeah.
He would jerk the steering wheel from side to side whenever even in a straight line he would do that. And not to warm up the tires or anything, but he looked like he was driving very nervously.
He was, and it was because he was rushed into Formula 1 too soon by his dad, and I think his dad, to be honest, I think he's done very well to keep his career alive, despite, you know, the fact that his dad has done everything possible to accidentally ruin his reputation. But anyway, less about Lance. Vettel messed up, Lance messed up. I think Charles Leclerc
took responsibility.
Yeah, both of them did, and that's good. Charles Leclerc kind of messed up, but got away with it. Valtteri Bottas, I think, could have won the race if it wasn't for that mistake he made in the chicane. I think that he's going to be a bit annoyed at himself. He said after the race that he doesn't feel that he could have done anything more. I reckon he could have done. I reckon that if, for example, Hamilton or Verstappen or Leclerc had been in his car, they would have gone on to win the race. But still, it was an okay performance from Valtteri. He did better than Hamilton anyway. Hamilton made a mistake all by himself, and then destroyed his tyres as well. I definitely agree that Valtteri did better than Hamilton. But for me, driver of the day was Daniel Ricciardo.
Absolutely.
Oh, actually, pizza, exactly. Anyway,
pizza.
right. I feel like we should move on to the Cup series now. So,
and
Josh,
actually, just to put one more period on that, the incident involved. I've got two more points that I want to make just quickly.
Right,
one was the quote unquote incident between Lewis and Leclerc. I didn't see anything. And I'm not a Ferrari apologist or anything, but I didn't see anything that was malicious.
Yeah, it was slightly.
No,
he was just
it
taking his line. He was just taking his line, and
but
Lewis
he knew that Hamilton was there, though. That's the thing, and he just didn't leave him any room. He should have stayed on the inside, and then had to defend would have had to have defended the outside coming out of the corner. So he shouldn't have moved across back into Lewis's line. That was a bit dodgy, but it didn't deserve a penalty, and they made the right call with the.
Yeah, it was a racing incident.
I agree.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it was over the top, but it wasn't a penalty. And I think they made the right decision. I'm just so glad they finally used the black and white flag, because that is a perfect example of how to use it.
All right.
And the final point I want to make on Formula 1 was the interview, when they were in the interview room, and one of the funniest quotes I think I've heard from Valtteri Bottas was, "Congratulations, Charles." Charles in the interview room when he was still out on the podium celebrating with the Tifosi.
Oh, that was excellent. Yeah.
Oh man.
I
Okay.
absolutely love. I love Valtteri Bottas. I think he's not only a talent, but he's also a very funny man indeed.
He's got that.
all
He's
right.
got that Finnish dry sense of humor. Anyway, sorry, Jack.
Yeah.
Onto what is it?
On
The
the Cup Series. Yes, right. So we had the Brickyard 400, and in my opinion, it was just a slightly above average race. It wasn't by any means the best race of the season we've seen so far.
I gave it a 4 out of 10.
Out of 10, yeah.
The problem was that, I'm sorry, but clear air can only do so much.
Oh yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on Kevin Harvick's car pulling out a 5-second gap to everyone?
Still no way that car's legal.
do you
Sorry,
think?
but if that was anyone else that wasn't one of the quote unquote big three, they'd have their wins taken away after post race. There's no way. I actually, when on another YouTuber's Facebook page, we had a thread for the 400, and I actually said, I actually quoted the movie Stroker Ace on it. This car be disqualified in 2 seconds flat. Why?
Josh, what do you think?
Well, the engine sit too
Honestly,
far back.
all I have to say is Stuart Haas, of course, is a Ford. Kevin Harvick, of course, driving for Stuart Haas. He beat what was considered earlier this season to probably be the best team or the best Ford team by 5 seconds. He pulled out a 5-second gap in that short amount of laps over Joey Logano. Last year's champion, Joey Logano. If that don't say anything, then, I mean, I agree. Like, something had to have been up with that car, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To quote Jim Neighbors in Stroker Race, the engine sit too far back. It's got an oversized carburetor, and nitrous oxide is an automatic 6-month suspension.
I had no idea what you just said.
No one does. That's the thing. All right. So, did we actually enjoy the Brickyard 400?
It was a decent race. In my opinion, it was a decent race. Nothing too exciting. The only problem I had, which it comes with the playoffs, and we realize this happens every year, there was more attention put on the playoff contenders than there was the actual race for the win.
Yeah. It's that hype thing. And one thing I actually want to say, I want to give credit where it's due to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway track official, because after Brad Keselowski's rather scary crash into the Jersey barriers coming off of turn 2, they repaired it in what, like 15 minutes?
If that.
Yeah, and Brad Keselowski, in his interview, basically slammed the Speedway's use of a Jersey barrier. All I can say is, what can you expect from that? Because the problem is, where he hit is actually the exit point for the infield road course, like where they held the U.S. Grand Prix and the like. Now, the biggest issue I have is, Indianapolis Motor Speedway has always been in the forefront of safety. They were the first ones to install the safer barrier, the steel and foam energy reduction barrier. They have this tire barrier at turn 2, which, quite frankly, did its job. And it's not the first time that a car has hit that inside wall, because if you guys remember, in the month of May, Felix Rosenquist had a similar crash in turn 2 the day before qualifying for the 500. if does anyone here remember that, or
I
am I
remember
just?
Yeah, no, yep, that of course, that was a huge one.
Yeah, it was. It was a big wreck, but the thing is, that that wall is there to protect, to like to kind of prevent, because the problem is you can't put a concrete wall there because it's open space. And like the problem, I don't know where I was going with this, but I will say that like I think I'm sorry to say, but I think Brad Keselowski's comments were a little out of line. Because it did its job. Much like, and Josh will remember this, Pocono 2002, when Steve Park and Dale Jr. Hit the inside wall and the wall gave like it was supposed to.
Or Jimmy Johnson at Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
Pretty much like a recreation of J.D. McDuffie's fatal accident, but that protective barrier being there saved Jimmy's life.
And Kenny Wallace 2 years later at Watkins Glen when his rear brakes went out and he went backwards.
Definitely.
There has been a lot of attention drawn on safety, and hopefully not just the tracks will be safer, but also with Dallara being like working on the Gen 7 car, it'll go toward the construction of the car as well, like the safety structure.
There's something to say about that. As a track that was considered to be the most non-NASCAR ready and non-safe track, Indy has really stepped it up. If there's anything I'd have to say as a fan of motorsports, the most dangerous track that is ran on by some of the most popular forms of racing has to be Pocono. Pocono has to be the most dangerous at this time, and so far Pocono has not made any adjustments to try to make that track safer since their last upgrade to. They have not. And that was, what, 3-4 years ago?
Absolutely, I agree. I
have to agree. I have to agree with
taking
that
away the runoff area on the inside of on driver's left. That was not a very smart move by Pocono's part, unfortunately. Like, because you basically shrunk the amount of space between the inside wall and the racing line, and I don't like when tracks do that. I never have.
And we notice, like, the turns are so dangerous. Like, I noticed for IndyCar, it's usually the tunnel turn 2. For NASCAR, we've seen some of the most dangerous and could be possibly deadly accidents happen in turn 1. If you point out Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Bubba Wallace, I mean, the wreck pretty much, it's been questioned that the wreck Jimmy Johnson has is the reason that he's gone through such a downfall as a possible concussion that had happened because of that incident.
And turn 2 is no saint either for NASCAR. I remember 2 really big ones. Dave Marcus in '99 slamming head on into the wall in the tunnel turn, and then there was also Bobby Allison's career-ending crash in '88, also in the tunnel turn, along with Tim Richmond and Dale Earnhardt in '82.
Anyway, we are swaying slightly off topic now, but as you said, Indianapolis is a good track. However, and this is a good segment into our first feature story of the day, Jimmy Johnson, he was involved in a wreck during the Brickyard 400 that he's a 7-time champion, and that's cost him another run at the championship in the playoffs. So our first feature story of the day is actually about the playoffs.
Yes, it is. And the Brickyard 400 marked the end of the regular NASCAR season, meaning the 16 drivers that will be gunning for the championship in the Monster Energy Cup Series have been confirmed. And they are Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Ryan Newman.
And of course, Jimmy Johnson was just outside of that. I actually, how many places short of the playoffs was Jimmy Johnson? Have a look.
He was one place short, about 40 points back at the end of the race.
I thought he was 2 points.
No, he was 14 points back coming in, and leaving the race, he was 40 out due to the amount of positions he lost during that wreck.
And it basically came down to a battle between Newman and Suarez. Daniel Suarez for the final spot.
And Ryan Newman's prevailed.
Yeah, by, I think, one position?
One or two. He had Chase Elliott and I believe another vehicle. I'm not sure who between them as well.
I can just get the.
It was pretty much it was a poor strategy call by Suarez at the end of the race that cost him the win right there.
Those drivers that you've just seen there, they're in the playoffs. Now, just outside of the playoffs, so Daniel Suarez is 1 point short in 17th. Then it's Jimmy Johnson, Paul Menard, and then Chris Buescher, Recky Stenhouse Jr., Matt DiBenedetto, which is a bit of a shame. And he actually could have been in the playoffs, could Matt DiBenedetto, but he lost out at Bristol. Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, Daniel Hemrick, Ryan Preece, Bubba Wallace, which is a bit of a shame that Bubba didn't make the playoffs. Michael McDowell, Corey LaJoie, David Reagan, Matt Tift, and Reed Sorensen. That's the end of the point scorers, and then there's Quinn Hoff, Jamie McMurray, Austin Theriault, I believe that is.
Terrio,
okay. Guys as well, but I think they were only just they were just either one-offs or did a minimal amount of races.
Well, drivers.
Yeah. Well, Quinn Huff. Who are the Spire drivers apart from Justin Haley?
I'm not completely sure. I feel like Spire was a team pretty much thrown together just for development of Justin Haley, in my honest opinion, which, I mean, honestly, like, besides Justin Haley, I couldn't tell you another driver.
It's the 77 car, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, the 77 that won Daytona.
Reed Sorensen's made 16 starts in the 77 car.
And, the thing is, like, I didn't know where I was going with this, but, yeah, Matt DiBenedetto, I think, should have won at Bristol, but, of course, Ryan Newman decided, he was going to race the leader, which I don't like. I don't like when someone races the leader when he's being lapped. I never have, and probably never will.
Yeah, well,
you can understand Ryan Newman trying to stay on the lead lap right there, especially if a caution were to come out. Now, do understand, I do not like Ryan Newman for it either. Of course, Matt DiBenedetto being a fan favorite. Not a lot of fan support behind Ryan Newman after that action. But, I mean, it's just stuff that happens in racing, and I feel like that's what went over a lot of people's head, was that, hey, it's racing, it happens. But, like, I think it was just because of the situation and the incidents that had led up to that race because that was the same week, if I'm not mistaken, that they had announced that he is going to get booted probably for Christopher Bell.
Yeah, that was actually the same one, the same race, and which of course, I have to say, this actually, believe it or not, moves us right along to the second story that I have about Paul Menard. Paul Menard has announced his retirement from full-time NASCAR competition at the end of the 2019 season. This means that the 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford Mustang seat has opened up. And who better to fill the 21 seat than Matt DiBenedetto?
The burrito.
Absolutely. It was announced in August during the Bristol weekend that DiBenedetto had been given the axe by Levine Family Racing to potentially make way for young Joe Gibbs Racing protege Christopher Bell. Fans were gutted that the driver of the 95 would be without a seat, considering the strong performance he'd had in the Levine Racing Camry, including the race at Bristol we just talked about. For 2020, he will be taking the 21 seat, meaning that this story has a happy ending. Paul Menard says he isn't done racing, however. He's still working out the next step in his career. Now, I can actually see something coming of this that could actually help his career even more than it already has been. Matt DiBenedetto, as we know, is an excellent road racer, as we've all seen this year in that 95 car. The Wood Brothers has a technical affiliation with Penske Racing.
Yes.
Penske has an Acura DPI. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do, but isn't it a bit... I mean, isn't that a bit of a stretch for somebody to just go from driving stock cars to a prototype?
Not for the Rolex 24. There have been... In the past...
Jeff Gordon. I'm just going to...
Jeff Gordon won it in 2017. In the past, there have been numerous drivers that have run at Daytona in the Rolex 24. In the 24 Hours of Daytona. Most notably, Tony Stewart and Dale Jr. They nearly won the race in 2004. Christian Fittipaldi, many people forget he actually drove in the Cup Series the year before, and he won the 2003 Rolex 24. Casey Mears, Jamie McMurray, Kyle Larson, all winners at Daytona. Derek Cope actually ran a couple of races, ran a couple times at Daytona. Also, I believe actually Mark Martin and Bill Elliott both have victories at Daytona and Sebring. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I probably am, and I'll eat a bug. But
I couldn't tell you.
I know Mark Martin has a class win at Daytona, and I think Bill Elliott actually won at Sebring in I think 1986. So NASCAR drivers doing sports car racing is nothing new, and it's very much welcomed.
Who did you say you were going to do that? So did you say Paul Menard or DiBenedetto?
I say DiBenedetto should actually run a. Personally, it's of my opinion that every driver should be mandated to do at least one race in another discipline like IMSA. Like, the Craftsman, not Craftsman Truck Series. I've been watching a lot of Craftsman Truck Series races from years past. Some of the Truck Series drivers, specifically the Ford guys, like Matt Crafton, Ty Majeski, who else? Johnny Sauter? They ran in the Pilot Challenge series.
Johnny Sauter, I do believe, did.
Yeah, and basically, the Ford Motor Company development drivers and Johnny Sauter ran in the INSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. So basically, I think every team needs to put together or every driver needs to have at least a little bit of experience in another discipline just to try it out, see if they like it. But that's actually part of the reason why I'm actually kind of rooting for Cody Ware to succeed in the Asian Le Mans series.
We have strayed slightly off topic. Do we think De Benedetto will find success in the 21 seat?
Well,
Absolutely.
He already found success, I believe, in the 95. He proved that he can turn that into the winning car. Heck, he led the most laps in the Daytona 500.
Yep.
In the 500.
Until it was ironically that Paul Menard pushed him into the wall.
Yeah, that's ironic. But even though some people say that they're in Joe Gibbs' equipment, let's be honest, that they still do not get the best equipment. He outbeat a guy who probably has one of the best sets of equipment at Joe Gibbs. He was outrunning him for a good portion of that race until contact with Ryan Newman. He was beating teams like Hendrick. He pulled away from Chase Elliott. Let's just let that sink in.
Okay, so if we're proving that De Benedetto, of course, is a driver that he can definitely do well, is the 21 car a race-winning car?
I'd say so.
It was a race-winning car under Blaney, and I feel, in my opinion, I feel like De Benedetto is a more talented driver than Ryan Blaney.
And I actually, to add on that, as I said before, Wood Brothers has a technical alliance with Penske, so they can get information from Team Penske on how to set up their car. So it's technically a satellite Penske team, a satellite Penske car. So they could go over, Matt De Benedetto, for instance, could go over to, say, Joey Logano or Ryan Blaney or Brad Keselowski's team to try and help set up a car. They could get setup advice from them. So I think this actually might be the winning strategy, and I think they will be a contender.
So, okay, well, obviously Matt De Benedetto, he's been booted out of the 95 seat, presumably to make way for Christopher Bell, and that was presumably due to pressure from Joe Gibbs. Is Christopher Bell ready for the Cup Series, and is that the right call from Joe Gibbs?
Absolutely not.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with that statement. You see failed projects just like William Byron, I believe, should be in the Truck Series right now. Guys like Daniel Suarez was rushed too quick to make money, I feel like. Guys like, I feel like there's more talented drivers and poor rides in the Cup Series that deserve better rides just because of guys that were brought up too quickly. In my opinion, Eric Jones should be a guy that still, even though he has won races, he should be a guy that should still be running in Xfinity. He was rushed up because of Christopher Bell coming up. So he was rushed to the Cup Series to provide room for Christopher Bell. So, there's a lot of things that I like what Stewart Haas is doing. Not only are they kind of forced to be doing this, but they're straying away from the past by allowing Cole Custer to stay in Xfinity. I believe this is his third year, or he may be coming up on his third year in the Xfinity series, which has allowed him to develop into what I believe will be a very good driver for Stewart Haas once he comes up to the Cup Series, and could be a pretty good investment for them.
And Chase Briscoe as well. Basically, the more experience you get, the better you'll be. Now, I think, and I fear, and I've said this before to other people, I think Christopher Bell has peaked in the Xfinity Series. I'm afraid he has, because, like, mind you, anybody can win in Joe Gibbs equipment, unless it's the 18 car when someone not named Kyle is in it. But, I'm sorry, but Jack Hawksworth should have won Mid-Ohio. But,
It was damn well close, actually, in Mid-Ohio.
he was,
Well,
until, of course, they decided to screw up his last pit stop.
Well, this is a big thing that goes along with that. I feel like there's a lot of guys that peaked in the Xfinity Series. If we're talking about guys like William Byron, I believe he peaked in the Xfinity Series. He's shown good, consistent performances as of recent, making a bunch of runs in the top 5 and top 10. But I still feel like there's more that was expected of him when he was brought up. Even as such a young driver, he was here in the Xfinity Series. Like there was so much on him because he went into that car right after Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
Knowing that you put that pressure on that kid, and then he follows up in the car that Chase Elliott and Jeff Gordon both drove.
And
that
also,
number.
Not only that, but also the both Dillon brothers.
And now, this is something that I will say. Austin Dillon has talent. The problem with Austin Dillon is the attitude. The Dillon brother that I believe, I believe Ty Dillon should get a chance to run an RCR equipment. And no, I'm not talking about the 13, which is an affiliate. I'm talking about put him in the 3, put him in the 8. Give him an actual chance. If anybody should be shipped out of there, I believe it should be Austin Dillon. But I believe that Ty Dillon has the attitude and has the talent to where he can succeed and get, consistent finishes, maybe a win within a season.
Yeah, because he's technically showed me a little bit, like, that he can actually win.
In the 13.
Yeah, he's been decent.
13. And
he's had decent performances.
This leads me to a question that I'm just going to ask. I know it's not on the script, but we're looking at guys that are coming up maybe too quick or all that. My question is Jimmy Johnson. Of course, he missed the playoffs this year for the first time since the playoffs have started. He was going for a record-breaking 8 championships. And the question is, his contract runs out, I believe, in 2021 or 2020, somewhere in there. Is this the end of Jimmy Johnson?
Well, I mean, he's got the best. He's got such good equipment, and it has to be said, he has not done a lot with that equipment today. I mean, this season. I mean, there's been guys with so much. There's been guys with so much less, and guys in cars that really aren't that great that have been able to find success. And yet, Jimmy Johnson, he's been put in one of the best cars in the Cup Series, and he's not even made the playoffs, and he hasn't even won a race either.
Like, he hasn't won a race since when?
It's been over 2 years.
Since the 2017 season.
Let's put this in perspective. Eric Jones has debuted and won 2 races since Jimmy Johnson's last win.
Jimmy Johnson,
yes.
He's finished in the top 5 only 3 times this year from 26 races. So I think he might be on the way out. In fact, he's actually the Sebastian Vettel of the Cup Series right now, actually.
I could say
That's actually
that.
a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
But
right.
the question is, on his way out, who fills that spot? Now, there's been a lot of speculation Kyle Larson could come over. They are an affiliate with Chip Ganassi is an affiliate with Hendrick Motorsport, so there's been rumors about Kyle Larson possibly in the future filling that 48 car. They also have Noah Gregson, surprise, surprise, following William Byron and Chase Elliott in that 9 car.
No.
And I do agree with you there. I do agree with you right there. But the question is, who is the driver that is probably the best and most realistic option to be in that 48 once Jimmy Johnson is ushered out?
That's a tough one. I think actually it could be Ross Chastain.
Oh God.
Because he's had some, like, he's contending for the championship in the Truck Series.
Please tell me you didn't say that.
I realize the hype, and I'm not trying.
Chris, no. Oh, you made me so proud. No.
Oh my goodness.
I'm supposed to be impartial, Josh.
Okay.
No, hold on. You're saying you're impartial, yet you're giving so much stick to Jose Maria Lopez.
Yeah, this isn't an impartial podcast. Don't worry about that, Chris.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Let's get this straight. I've had a sour taste in my mouth ever since the incident between him and Kevin Harvick at Darlington last season. No. Okay. I don't believe he has talent. He has raw talent. In my opinion, he just doesn't have the race IQ because he blamed that incident on Harvick. I just can't get that out of my mind. That, like, I don't know. It's just that's always been a thorn in my side about that idea, about that incident right there.
I still think that given the opportunity, like, honestly, I'm trying to think who else can fill that spot, because I don't think Noah Gragson is at all ready to race in the Cup Series. In fact, I think he was actually rushed into the Xfinity Series too early. Honestly, like, because I've seen him this year. It's been basically a lot of hit and miss, mostly miss. With Noah Gragson, I think actually Justin Haley may stand a good chance to replace him if they let him develop. Good.
That's what I do agree. That's something that I do agree with. A guy that I wish would get a shot to come up, honestly, is Justin Allgaier. I feel like, at least, especially if Jimmy leaves unexpectedly, I feel like Allgaier could be a great person to fill that spot for 1 or 2 years before you get like Justin Haley and I know that you don't want it, but it's probably the most realistic option on why they signed him to Junior Motorsports. But Noah Gragson, before they get one of those guys in there, I feel like Justin Allgaier should at least get a shot to run that 48 car.
And like we could argue about this whole silly season thing until the cows come home to roost. But that's a Chris-ism, by the way. Till the cows come home to roost.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have one more thing to talk about, and it's just going back to the playoffs. Now, considering who's in the playoffs, who do we think is going to win? And this is the $1 million question. Who do we think is going to win the NASCAR championships this year?
Me.
I already have.
Caitlin Penny.
Caitlin. No, exactly. Wait, never mind. One second.
No. I have a joke, but I can't say it.
Yeah, don't get too ahead of
Okay,
yourself.
so who's in it? It's currently Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Joe Logano, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, Carl Larson, Alex Bowman, Eric Jones, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Ryan Newman.
I reckon it'll be a
Alright,
Joe Gibbs car. I reckon it's probably
I'm
going to be
gonna
either
make
Kyle Busch or Denny
I'm gonna
Hamlin.
make a prediction, and you're gonna hate me for it because it's gonna be a little bit biased. But I think the guy that I grew up watching that has shown success, that he can make it so close to the Final Four, but comes up just short. I feel like this is his year, not only to make it to the Final Four, but to win the championship. And I think Chase Elliott and
I
that
could
number
see it.
9 car
Ooh, that's a
will finally make it there.
I could
And
see
if
it.
you know me pretty well, Jack knows this. I only live down the road from Chase Elliott. I grew up watching him. I know he has the ability to make it to that point, and I feel like this could be his time.
Hey, you were mentored by Chase Elliott, weren't you?
I wouldn't exactly say that, but like watching him grow up, like watching him as I grew up and became a racer myself, it was nice to learn a few things off of what he did.
Anyway, okay.
I think.
I'm gonna say
I
that,
think actually. Good.
I'm gonna say that I'm rooting for everyone but Chase Elliott because Elliott was my ex's surname and he is a bad person. So there.
Ooh.
Here we go.
You're going just off his surname, okay.
Excellent. Which of course is the best.
Best judge
Which,
of
of course,
character, yeah.
is the
Especially when
yes.
you've never watched a NASCAR race in your life, like me.
I'd get on it, especially the Roval. But
Roval's good, actually.
you know, I'm gonna actually go. I think Chase Elliott might actually be the best of the Chevys. I think actually Alex Bowman may be a bit of a dark horse to win the championship, or at least make the Final Four. But I think it might actually be, and I hate to say this, but I think it might be one of the 3 Gibbs cars, especially like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin.
Can I just
that wins
expand
overall.
Can I just expand on this little point? So I think it'll either be one of the Gibbs cars. I reckon it'll either be Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin. But
Fabulous
in an
weather this
outside
last
chance,
week.
and this may be wishful thinking. I reckon Kyle Larson could actually pull off a couple of miracles, and maybe he might be in it.
I could see that. Well, mind you, the last lap of the Roval, he was out. And he made it in with 3 wheels on his wagon. So nothing's impossible.
Nothing.
All I'm going to say is his kryptonite's in the playoffs, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, right, yeah. Mind you,
Texas Motor Speedway.
True. I think Alex Bowman's going to be the dark horse of it. I think the Final Four will be Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, and either Alex Bowman or Chase Elliott.
Okay, so our predictions are in. Let's see who wins the playoffs, and we've discussed some silly season news. Now, Josh, this is the end of the NASCAR news. I'm not sure if you want to jump out, but if you are going to jump out, thank you very much for joining us on this show. It's been a pleasure having you on.
All right, thank you guys.
And actually,
for having me.
How's your league race going?
I finished second. I won both stages and finished second.
Well done.
You know.
Well done.
Do you have something that you want to talk about? Do you have a?
Is it NASCAR Heat 4?
No, it was Heat. It was the league race was Heat 3, but there's a new project me and some of my friends have been working on. We have a new club on Xbox called Velocity Endurance Racing Club, looking to help guys pursue league racing and esports and try to get on the world stage with the NASCAR Heat iPro League Draft and also on the Forza World Championship. So if you're looking forward to increasing your esports skills, go ahead. My gamer tag is Expert Racing. That's XPERT Racing. Go ahead and message me there or message the owner of the league, BDF48 Gaming. and we can certainly find a spot for you, and we hope to hear from any of the viewers soon.
I might actually consider joining in that as well. Anyway, thank you very much for that, Josh, and that's the end of the
If you want,
NASCAR.
and if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to.
More than welcome to if you want.
Well, actually, I got some stuff to take care of, but thank y'all for inviting me, and see you next time.
See you later.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Anyway, Caitlin, I bet you're sick of staying quiet, so that's why we have a Formula E story for you.
I must say NASCAR isn't exactly my forte in terms of knowledge, but anyway, Formula E, Maximilian Gunther will be replacing Antonio Felix da Costa at BMW I Andretti. This means an uncertain future for da Costa as he's now cut his factory tyres with BMW. However, he has been linked to the second DS Techeetah seat alongside John-Eric Verne following the departure of Andre Lotterer.
I mean, I thought Maxi Gunter. I thought he was going to be a Mercedes man, but obviously not.
I kind of called that. I thought Gunter was going to be going to Andretti, to BMW.
Yeah, Gunter's had links with Mercedes in the past, but really, I don't know. Formula E seems to be like anything goes, basically. Anyone goes wherever they feel like. I think it would be great for da Costa's career if he went to DS Techeetah, because I feel like he'd perform. But really, you know, it doesn't matter too much in Formula E. I just hope they have fun out there.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, yeah. Anyway, we also do have some other silly season news. If you wouldn't mind me going through that.
Go on.
Mercedes-Benz have revealed their car for the 2019-20 ABV Formula E season. The car is very similar in livery to that of the Mercedes Formula One cars of the past few years, featuring a silver paint scheme with blue and black accents. SAP investors have joined the roster of sponsors, joining Tommy Hilfiger and Mercedes' electric brand EQ, which they have just released one of their first road cars. More interestingly, however, Mercedes have also announced that Stoffel Van Dorn and F2 star Nick de Vries will be taking up the driving duties.
Ah, very nice. I think that's a really strong lineup, actually. I think
It's a
that's
strong
really strong
lineup.
lineup.
Now, this does come off the back of years of speculation that Nico Rosberg was going to come back to racing, but that was probably a shot in the dark anyway. But I reckon that's a fairly good lineup.
Wait a second. Nico Rosberg said something that can be construed as clickbait. Color me shocked.
No, Nico Rosberg never said anything. It was the fans that said things. People were like, oh my gosh, Nico Rosberg's gonna, come back to racing because he tried out the Formula E car at the Berlin circuit a few years. The new car, I think, was it last year? I don't remember. But anyway, everyone said, could Nico Rosberg come back?
One thing that's kind of upsetting is that Nick de Vries sounds like he won't be in F1 next year then. I was kind of hoping that he'd be snapped up by Haas or Toro Rosso or someone like that, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I hope he's in F1 in 2021 because I think he's going to do a great job.
What team does he drive for in Formula 2 at the minute?
Let me get back. I have a feeling it's... Oh, golly. Okay, let me get back to you on that. Sorry.
I think it's isn't it either Dams or Carlin or something?
Formula... I searched up Formula 1. Okay, Formula 2, 2019. There we go. Nick de Vries is ART. ART.
ART.
Indeed, yeah. He is alongside Nikita Mazepin, and he is absolutely thrashing Nikita... Sorry, not Nikita Mazepin, because he's French. It'll be, not French, sorry, he's Russian. It'll be Nikita Mazepin. And he is absolutely thrashing his teammate. And pretty much the rest of the field, to be honest.
I do want to say, though, is Stoffel Van Dorn the best choice for a factory driver?
Yeah, totally.
He can be. He has some... He's done some he's made some impressive strides, but
No, Van Van Dorn's great. I'll give you two main reasons why Van Dorn is a great pick for that seat. Number one, because he's genuinely very, very good, and because we saw in Formula E last year that he could be extremely competitive. And number two, because he always gets fan boost, so it's always a good. Always a good thing to sign a very popular driver in Formula E because of that fan boost.
I would, if I was Mercedes, I would try and throw in some money at Pascal Wehrlein to see if he would have joined the team.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yes, I
Well,
would have.
wasn't Verline linked to a Haas seat
Yes,
this season?
He did approach Haas.
They said no. They said no.
Yeah, he approached Haas. Although the fact that it's come out now that he approached Haas and that he's not been signed for next year, that does tell me that they probably said no. And I'm surprised about that because, to be honest, I think Verlaine could have been their saving grace in that.
Yeah, because that came up this week, didn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think it did, yeah. Anyway, right. Do we want to move on from Formula E now?
Well, I think that I just want to put a period on this by saying that I think Stoffel Van Dorn and Nick De Vries are a good, solid lineup. Hopefully, the car will be good for both of them next year, and they got a pretty stacked roster, if I must say.
Wait, yes.
So there you
Caitlin, we
go.
have some news.
Okay, so moving on, we have a story from Hyundai, which is that they have revealed their new ETCR car at the Frankfurt Motor Show. The Veloster N ETCR is the first car that has been designed for the new ETCR category, which I still think is an awful idea, beginning in 2020. This car was actually teased a few weeks ago with an image showcasing a small section of the wheelbase. However, we can now see the Veloster N ETCR in full.
So this was actually revealed a few weeks ago, and we covered it on that slightly ill-fated show where we only had 2/3 of the podcast. But
Yeah, okay, I wanna say this quickly. I'm fine with racing series going electric. Like I would be. I know that it would be an unpopular decision, but I would be fine if, for example, TCR or the WTCR or just even BTCC maybe announced tomorrow that, hey, next year we're going fully electric. Like, I wouldn't mind, because
I 100% agree with you, and there's a
But-
very specific reason.
but I do not like a new series being created just for electric cars. I think it's unnecessary. I think it makes us take it less seriously. I think that I think that people make far too much of a big deal about it.
And
I don't like the idea of an
it actually-
ETCR.
Like, I don't also understand why they have why they're wanting to do an electric rallycross series.
Me neither. It's just because,
It-
electric cars are all the rage, and people with money are like, hey, new racing series time. However, for example, that's like if back in the 1980s, they had created separate championships for, carbon fiber. That's like if there had been separate CF1 or, CF kart, or just nonsense.
Or the
Or if, for
or
example,
actually the most famous, the Jim Clark and Colin Chapman trophies in Formula One for the best naturally aspirated car.
that actually did happen. That actually did happen, but that's like if that had been a separate series, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But there you go.
for the best naturally aspirated car.
Anyway, I do agree with Caitlin on the whole electric thing because well, I've actually been doing some research into climate change, and
Okay.
pretty dire. I won't go into the specifics of it, but basically, not looking good. But I would certainly I mean, I'm on board with the electric movement, and this is coming from somebody who has been a petrol head since the age of 10 and has loved big things with V8s
I
and
respect
whatever.
that,
But
and I agree. I do.
I think does have to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's why that's why I think who was the first one to have hybrid power?
But hybrid power has been
in
around since the 1800s.
no, I mean like hybrid power as in like in racing terms. Like
I think it was the WEC who were the first to make that sort of jump.
the first mainstream, but I believe actually the first hybrid race car, and correct me if I'm wrong here, chat,
I wouldn't know.
but it was the
Pano.
Q9. The
What?
Pano's Q9.
Yes, it was actually.
Ah.
That was the first hybrid car.
That was a beautiful car, but like it had, but like it basically the technology embraced our need to be greener. Like the American Le Mans series used to run something known as the Green X Challenge, which ran basically the best alternate fuel series, and like the best alternate fuel or best conservation of energy. And they ran that, I think, the first year Audi came up with the diesel in 2006. So, like, this is not a new thing, but I agree with Caitlin on this. Like, it shouldn't be a separate series.
Yeah, we don't need to.
It's just a waste.
It's just, you know, it's a waste of everyone's time and money, basically, and I can't see it being particularly exciting either.
It's also redundant.
Yeah, and they're probably going to hold us on like silly street courses and things. I don't like it. But anyway, that's that.
Anyway, we have
Absolutely.
we have the first ever edition of, and don't worry, there's no jingle for this because this will probably be the first and only ever edition of Stories. And
now you've gone and jinxed it.
well, actually, I wouldn't mind there being some more of this. But this was actually suggested by Caitlin a few weeks ago, where we talk about all the goings on in relation to William's story and Haas and Rich Energy. And pretty much, I think the reason this would probably most likely be the last of it is this is pretty much the end of the story. So Rich Energy have terminated their sponsorship deal with Haas effective immediately. In other news, William's story seems to be more bipolar than a polar bear in a fighter jet because this is what he had to say. Because this is what he had to say on Twitter.
Bipolar than a polar bear in a fighter jet. I love that analogy, and I'm going to use that.
That's nonsense, but I love it. Anyway, carry on, Jack.
That was fantastic.
So, CEO William Story, this is what I had to say on Twitter. I'd like to thank @HaasF1 for great efforts in our partnership. It is regrettable that they got caught in a crossfire of a shareholder dispute which led to this wholly avoidable fiasco. I wish the team the very best and our passion for motorsport unabated. Now, the thing is with this is a very different tone to what William's story was going on with earlier in the year. He seemed to be quite aggressive and quite hostile on Twitter, and now he's it's been great with our partnership, whatever. And
I reckon he's got his tail between his legs. I reckon he's feeling quite sheepish about the whole thing, to be honest, by the sounds of that. But anyway, it's kind of a shame that we didn't start stories earlier, because this whole segment would have been brilliant a few months ago with everything that happened with Rich Energy. I'm not surprised to see them terminate their contract. Let's face it, that was going to happen. I just, it is kind of sad to see them go after everything that happened, to be honest.
And with this whole William Story thing, I think the fact that he's got his tail between his legs, maybe because he knows he's going to jail.
Yeah, probably. He probably is. Oh, mind you, if you're going to get sent to jail for the rest of your life, why not go down fighting? I mean, you may as well at that point.
He's just
He's quite a character. But anyway, there you go.
Jean-Pierre von Rossum was a saint compared to this guy. Seriously. And
Right.
yes, I just dropped another reference to the former owner of Moneytron. I want my Moneytron Onyx shirt.
Now, do we
Anyway.
have a jingle for the following segment?
We do indeed.
Okay, well,
Which
it's time. Well, it's time for a regular. It's time for the return of one of our regular segments. Is of course time for
Nando Watch. Nando, your favorite IndyCar driver. We're up to date with where Nando is today. Fernando Alonso's my favorite IndyCar driver. He'll win the race and take trophies back to Spain. Nando Watch, we'll keep you updated on anything Fernando decides to do. Nando Watch, Nando, the champion at least. He's not still driving GP2.
Nando Watch.
Oh, I'm so glad we had the patriotic jingle. Actually, I do like that jingle. Actually,
I actually prefer that one over the other one. I love both of them, but I actually love the patriotic one.
It's a little bit long.
It
but
just
anyway.
fits.
I wouldn't mind alternating between them, but anyway. Right.
But at least he's still not driving GP2.
He's not driving anything at the moment, and that's what we're actually talking about. So Fernando Alonso is still unsure about his future in Formula One, or in fact his future anywhere. And this is what he had to say to Movistar. I wanted to rest, but I'm resting very little. Daytona, Le Mans, Indy, and now this adventure in the dunes. He's of course referring to the Dakar Rally. Every week I'm somewhere else, traveling a lot, but having fun. I'm yet to decide what I'll do in 2020, let alone 2 years from now. I live in the present, and this year I'm doing what I want to do. Everything went well apart from Indy, and next year I will try to continue to complete my challenge, which is a bit like motorsport from a different era. I did not feel like another year finishing 7th or 8th in Formula One, winning the World Endurance Championship, Le Mans, trying for the Triple Crown. That felt more like me. Now, can I just say that how do you get to the point in Formula One in a sport that is so tightly contested and people are getting forced out of drives and not getting drives all the time, where you are dictating your own future in Formula One?
Mainly because Fernando's so good, basically. I think it's just because, partly because Fernando's so good, partly because he's so experienced, partly because he's got his reputation, so everyone, basically, if Fernando says he's going to do something, people roll over for him, which is great. He's, to be honest, it's weird because I don't think he's done his career very well. The way he's done, for example, PR, the way he some of his career moves and things have been really bad, yet somehow he still picks up this fantastic reputation and somehow everyone still loves him. But whatever the case, that's Fernando. He's obviously doing something right, and he's just a few hours ago he tweeted that he spent 3 days in South Africa with Mark Coma and all of the Toyota Hilux team, prepping for the Dakar Rally. So to be honest, I think he's going to do well. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes, and it looks like he's having fun. So props to him.
Right. Well, Chris, do you have anything to say on the Fernando Alonso thing?
Not really. I just wish he'd make up his mind already as to where he's gonna go, because, I'd love to see him in either an IndyCar or a sports car, for that matter.
I think he needs to do IndyCar before
Anywhere.
long, surely. He's got to do IndyCar before long.
Put him in the second seat.
I'm almost 100% sure that Fernando Alonso will be doing the Indianapolis 500 with, presumably McLaren next year.
And be bumped. But,
That's almost 100% guaranteed at this point.
What, that he'll be bumped?
No, he won't be bumped, but he'll be in it in some respect.
Is McLaren partnered with anyone, or are they doing it as their own team?
Peterson Motorsport.
McLaren, Schmidt, Peterson, Motorsport.
In that case, I think he stands a chance of winning it. But that's a bold claim, so...
No, but so in fact, McLaren have actually pretty much bought out the entire Schmidt Peterson Motorsport team now.
Oh, yeah, I remember
so they'll have time to develop their cars and stuff, and probably even improve. So Fernando Alonso, when by the time he comes around in May, they'll probably actually have a really, really competitive. So he'll probably have a chance of winning.
Exactly, yeah. With money coming in from McLaren, I think this is what both Schmidt Peterson and Fernando needs. I think it would be disappointing if Fernando wasn't in the top 5 this year, next year.
And I've got a prediction with for next year. If Fernando does a full-time season with Schmidt Peterson, I think there's going to be 3 cars.
Okay.
One for James Hinchcliffe. One for
One else.
One for, I'm hoping, Marcus Ericsson, and one for Fernando.
Right. Should we move on to our final segment of the day?
Sure.
Yes.
Let me just... I see what it's gonna be. Alright. Why have I just closed the jingles folder?
Question.
Okay, here we go. It's time...
How's everyone's day been?
Sorry. Okay, it's time for... Please load. Here we go.
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed, and therefore recovering OTM. Boom.
Bing indeed. Jack, take it away.
Well, Chris actually has the first story
Chris,
of the
take it
day.
away.
Yes. This regards the Macau Grand Prix and the fact that there has been some upgrades to it, some circuit upgrades for safety reasons.
Okay.
Which will be upgrading its status to FIA Grade 2.
Okay.
To accommodate the new FIA Formula 3 cars that will be competing. According to Sports Car 365, the upgraded safety standards also come in the wake of Sofia Vlarsh's crash in last year's race when she flew and slammed into a photographer's stand. And first of all, she's perfectly all right now, and she's made a genuinely amazing recovery, it must be said. Okay, so the buffer zones. There have been buffer zones of impact protection foam and barriers that will be installed at the following corners. And if you have a track map handy, they are Reservoir, Mandarin Oriental, Lisboa, Gia Hill, and R Bend. And there's also another bit of news on this. They are reintroducing the Silver Cup, which ran last year. The silver-rated drivers in an effort to boost car counts for the FIA GT World Cup. There is a total of 20 entries that are expected for the race, including multiple Asian-based teams returning to the event, which is promoted in part by the SRO Motorsport Group. Now, I have to say, the circuit upgrades are very much welcome.
Yeah. Do you know, roughly what the circuit upgrades are going to be?
Mostly softer walls.
Softer walls. Okay, and they've removed the sausage curbs, right?
I hope so. Although I think, actually, didn't Sophia last year? Didn't she take flight after hitting? Oh, I forget his name. He
Jehan Daravala. It was Daravala who.
Jan Daravala, yeah.
It Jan
No, I thought it
Daravella.
was the Japanese driver. I thought it was the
Yeah.
Japanese driver that was at the back of the grid.
Okay, so basically, it would she clipped Jan Daravella's car, lost her left front and rear rear left wheel, meaning that she couldn't brake basically, and that sent her flying into the sausage curb. The sausage curb made her take flight, made her take off, and then she went over the top of the Japanese driver whose name I can't remember. So she was already.
I'll look it up.
She was already in the air before that, but it certainly didn't help.
Right, so that's good that the Macau Grand Prix circuit has received updates,
Totally.
but
And
we do
the
have some other
driver-
stories.
Yeah, totally. And the Japanese driver was Sho Tsuboi. Sorry.
Oh, Shosu boy, yeah, he's in Super GT sometimes. Anyway, right, there's some IMSA news. Chris, do you want to say something
Yes.
about that?
One of the big silly season news that came out of last week. That came out of last week. That actually I saw on Action Express's Instagram story. Action Express Racing is going to be keeping Felipe Nasr and Pippo Durrani for 2020. Now, this, of course, followed the test and speculation that he was going to be that Nasr was going to be going to the second McLaren seat in IndyCar, and they will both be driving the number 31 Whelen Cadillac for the second or third year in succession. So
Not really.
it's
no.
basically that old saying, you can't have too much of a good thing.
I don't think.
Anyway,
Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
unfortunately, we are a little bit short on time, so we might just need to go through some of these last few points reasonably quickly. But Caitlin, I'll just let you say what you just wanted to say
I
there.
was gonna say, I don't think I realized how good Felipe Nasr was until after he left F1. But sorry, let's not talk about that because we don't have enough time. Carry on, Jack.
All right. So Catherine Legg and fresh off the Grand Tour, Abby Eaton are set for W Series drives in 2020. The new GT500 cars for Super GT have been revealed. So the Supra, the Nissan GTR, and the strangely enough, front-engined NSX have been unveiled, but that's to comply with Class 1 regulations. Aston Martin are starting up a one-make series, which will begin in Europe, and that will be run by R Motorsport. The car will be a tuned version of the road-going V8 Vantage, and then after that, in like 2020 or 2021, the series is set to expand to Asia. And Shane van Gisbergen won the first race at Pukekohe in the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, and one of the very few wins that Holden have been able to pick up this year. And, well, we have another race today as well. Normally, this is where we would end the show, but we do have one final little segment, and if we have the little clip to play for that, that would be...
There we go.
And that's our preview of coming attractions. So this will be our new segment to round off the show, and this just gives us a chance to talk about what's coming up either on this channel or our own respective channels. So tonight it's round 3 of the AusNZ Combined Supercars Championship for 2019. This time we're on the streets of Long Beach for a sprint race and of course a feature race. Uncrewed Squid has been untouchable this season, taking victory in 3 of the first 4 races. Can he continue his momentum on the streets of Long Beach, or will someone else take first place honours? Find out tonight at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time on Twitch. and the link to my Twitch account is in the description below. Now, Caitlin, are you commentating on any sim races that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm commentating a couple this week. I have one on the 17th, so that's going to be Tuesday, and that is the WCS League TCR Championship on Race Room. It is the first Race Room series I've ever commentated. This is round 3 of the championship. The first 2 rounds of the championship have been some of the closest and most exciting rounds of any sim racing series that I've ever seen in my life. They are absolutely thrilling, and if you don't believe me, you should absolutely tune in to check for yourself. That's going to be starting at, I think, 7:30 British time, and as I said, that's going to be on Tuesday on the WCS League channel. Then as well on the 19th, so the Thursday, I'm going to be racing in the Jeep4WC ITC, racing a Subaru Levorg. That one's going to be at the Autopolis circuit in Japan, and if you want to see that, it's going to be GPVWC, the YouTube channel, and that's... Oh, and I'm going to be in Division 2. I can't guarantee that there will be a broadcast. I think one is planned, although sometimes they don't actually broadcast Div 2. Finally, last but very much not least, on the 21st, so that will be a week from today, I'm going to be commentating Sim Racing Online, Sim Racing Online's GT1 Championship just before this podcast. I believe that will be at around, I think that's probably about 7 British time that starts, and that's going to be really good because we've got like loads of old GT1 cars, like the old Lister and Celine and Panos, and you know, all that kind of car that makes Chris whimper. Yeah. So that's going to be very exciting. Just going to look up what track that is going to be at. It's at Motorsport, so Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
Ooh!
Very much.
Just whimpering even more. Also, all right, so if you...
And then, of course, in a week's time, we will be back for another episode of the podcast. Sorry, Jack.
Yes. Right, so if you send me some links to your sim commentaries, I'll put them in the description below. Anyway... And on that note, it is about time to end. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Special thanks to Joshua Franks. The link to his Instagram page will be in the description below. And of course, as previously mentioned, if you flick him a message, I'm sure he'll let you into his Xbox Racing Club. Joining me on the mic today has been my usual partners in crime, the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Motorsport Recently. And if we have credits, do we have credits?
We do.
Okay, fantastic. So, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Ta-ta.
Feel better, Jack.
Thank you.
Ta-ra.